before I, comment on this first one, I wanted to say, it's always, I mean, to me, dialogue, from my experience, you can use it in a lot of areas of life. I mean, it's just a cooperative looking together, and, caring about, what each person's contributing. So, but my own interest is more like, how are we going to live together, as human beings? Are we going to keep hurting each other, or do we want to have a different kind of relationship? So that's what this first quote to me is essential. Like when people say they're doing Bohm dialogue and they're not doing what it says here, I go, I don't think that's really Bohm dialogue. I think that's a form of Bohm dialogue. But anyways, so this first one, and so I thought, people could look at it and see, well, what does this mean to them? But so I'll read it. It says, dialogue, as we are choosing to use the word, is a way of exploring the roots of the many crises that face humanity today. It enables inquiry into and understanding of the sorts of processes that fragment and interfere with real communication between individuals, nations, and even different parts of the same organization. So, see, I feel it's helpful when people come into dialogue that they say, what are we doing here? I mean, and to me, this is usually what brings me to dialogue is, can we look together, at what's going on in our lives and our relationships, and is there any way to, that we can change some of these things that aren't working so well for all of us or something. So, and I would think that, given all of what's going on nowadays with all of the, economic difficulties that people have, and the family difficulties people have, that they might want to learn more see if it's possible for there to be some kind of change in that, situation, so, but, I mean, is that of interest to people to, to look at, the difficulties that we're having together as friends, like to see, because I guess one of the things I wanted to say when Dolly was talking about, that everybody was talking about, is that for me, one of the most important things about dialogue is this sense of, like friendship and affection, because it's a place where you don't have to feel like somebody's going to criticize you or judge you, or, because we have that equanimity that everybody's here together, just looking together as friends. I mean, that's the way I see it or something. But, and I guess I'm going to say another thing. When I looked at dialogue early on, because I really fell in love with it right away or something, but I was trying to explain it to people, and so I looked at it, and what it seemed to me was that it was they had put together all of the best ways for humans to learn together. If you have this safe environment, then people eventually see that nobody's going to criticize them or judge them. They begin to say, oh, this is a place, this is a place I can open up. I mean, I can actually move out of what I feel safe or something. And now I feel safe in a group. I can open up and look. And the other thing, if you're really focused on listening carefully to each other, that's how you learn. If you're looking together, that's how you see something new. So it's this, like, just the ideal environment for learning together. Because you're also not arguing with you. You're not holding on to old positions. You're looking freshly. So that's another obstacle that we have is, well, I already have the truth, so you don't look or something. So so they get all of these aspects that where you can openly learn, and without the usual obstacles or something. So that's why I think it's exactly what we need to do together.
Your next prompt has just arrived.
Yeah. So, see, I think this is important to express too, So it says discussion is almost like a ping pong game where people are batting the ideas back and forth, and the object of the game is to win or to get points for oneself. In dialogue, however, nobody is trying to win. Everybody wins if anybody wins. So my pointer to this is, so here we are, a group of 6. And if anybody sees something new, in a clear way, the group of 6 has learned. The group has discovered something. So that's the win-win. We're learning together, and time anybody learns, we've learned something about being together in a new way. But the ping pong thing is, we're not in competition. This is dialogue, is openly listening to each other. And you don't have to agree or disagree. We're just interested in learning. Together as a group of friends or something. So, but I think that's one of the difficulties with the word dialogue is I feel that for most people it brings the notion talking together, which would be discussion. But that's why one of the reasons why I feel it's useful to kind of suggest we're using the word a little bit differently here. We're using it to really listen carefully to each other and maybe see something in a new way that's that we don't already know. So it's not about trying to convince anybody of a view. It's just looking well, actually, I feel like mentioning. See, I think one of the things that you can discover in dialogue is these views that we have. They're never the actual thing that they refer to. So when people are arguing, they're usually each person thinks they're arguing over the truth, but they're really arguing over their opinion of it. So in dialogue, you can say, let's actually look at what's actually going on and not our opinions about what's going on. Let's actually look openly at what's going on. So it's in a discussion group, it's like, here's my opinion. No, here's my opinion. And dialogue, you can say, well, let's actually look at what these opinions are pointing to.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying looking at the fact rather than the idea about the fact, which is a very, very important distinction, I think. Most of us are caught up in exchanging our ideas, and that's where we get into difficulty and often into conflict because we're just not agreeing on the idea of something. So you're suggesting that dialogue is saying your idea may come across, but at some point, can you drop the idea so we can just look at what the idea is pointing to, or what is the idea really about in terms of the fact of it?
Right, and can we look at it together? I love, I think it's so, because it's true. People think of, we have to make the distinction between dialogue and discussion. And dialogue, as you said so beautifully, Howard, is, it's really way more about looking and listening than it is about talking.
Mm-hmm.
Or ideally, that would be okay.
And that's this actually interest to look at what actually is radically different. Most conversations are about opinions,
right.
Or
that's
ideas.
So critical.
Certainly about ideas.
Opinions, ideas, and beliefs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what was it Paritosh or Natal earlier? Somebody said about the suspension, right? That's what we're actually being asked to suspend.
Yeah, I think that's the one after this one.
Oh, okay.
So a basic notion for dialogue is for people to sit in a circle. So I included this one because of what we were saying. this is friends together. This is not somebody up here and somebody down
Right.
there. And if you're going to do this in person, this circle gives you that kind of setting or something. You don't have the person on the podium and the people in the audience. Because that's what we're doing. We're coming together as a group of friends, so let's all sit on the same level. And then you can see each other well too. You're not looking, what did he say behind me? You can see everybody. You're there together. So such a geometric arrangement doesn't favor anybody. It allows for direct communication because you can see people in front of you. In principle, the dialogue should work without any leader or without any agenda. The only exception there seems to be, when you're first, talking about what are we going to do together, just to get a sense, we're going to listen carefully and we're not going to try to convince anybody of anything. We're just going to learn together or something. So, and then it's, you hope little by little, each person begins to get a sense of the dialogue and everybody's a facilitator.
Yeah. I just want to point out, as you were talking, and I've been in these Zooms now since COVID, which is about over 2 years. And I just shifted my view from gallery, which shows everybody like the Hollywood Squares thing, everybody's in a little box, to speaker. And I got to say, it's a profound difference because I can see everybody almost as if we're sitting in a circle, right? I can look and see everybody in a little box up top, but the person who's speaking is front and center in the main screen. And it actually, I just did this just now. So I learned something else this morning because now I'm listening to Howard as Howard is speaking. I'm not listening to Howard in a little box. Everybody else I can still see as if I were sitting in a circle because as I mentioned it, I did group therapy for 30 years, and yes, you listen and you sit in a circle, and I know that there's already technology that will allow for the little boxes to be around you, so you'll have these like avatars, if you will, or whatever. But we're not there yet. But this is the next best thing that I just switched. The little box in the upper right hand corner says view. I clicked on it and I went from gallery to speaker. So whoever's speaking is going to be front and center in the big screen and you can still see everybody else. And it actually, in my brain, made a difference in terms of
made a difference in what way? That made you better able to listen? Or
to listen to the person speaking for one, because now I'm looking directly at them. I see you now, Margo. I don't see Howard. And you're in the main screen. Okay. And I could still see everybody else, just as if you were in a group where your attention is going completely to the speaker. Yeah, interesting.
Well, I guess whatever helps you to listen.
Now I don't see Paritosh. I just see his picture because he took his video off again.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to, Howard, what you just said right now about the other quote, and like everyone, like even it's a very shift and a very different perspective of seeing how Bohm introduced dialogue. Many of many people who are in dialogue or in Bohmian dialogue, they think that Bohm knew dialogue, and he was kind of explaining or teaching everyone through his books or through his seminars how to dialogue. But but few minutes ago, what you said, it just made me think that no, he was not doing anything. He was not explaining or teaching anything. He was just saying that we can talk about anything. But he was just introducing and inviting everyone that can we come in this way rather than any debate way, any discussion way, any and then trying to reach on any conclusion or all of those things. Can we come in this way? And I am inviting everyone to come, participate, be in communion in this way. So it's like it's a very different way of seeing how Bohm presented dialogue rather than to seeing he knew dialogue and he is trying to teach everyone what is dialogue.
Want to go to the next one?
Invitation, yeah. And an invitation is not an explanation. It's just an invitation.
Right.
Okay. The object of a dialogue is not to analyze things or to win an argument or to exchange opinions. Rather, it is to suspend your opinions and to look at the opinions, to listen to everybody's opinions, to suspend them, and to see what all that means. If we can see what all of our opinions mean, then we are sharing a common content. Even if we don't agree entirely, it may turn out that opinions are not really very important. They are all assumptions.
Mm.
So the suspending thing that, Paritosh mentioned earlier, this is, rather than if you feel a reaction coming up, you look at it, you just hold it. He would say just in like on a pendulum or something, just see what it is. So you're learning about yourself, your views and opinions, but we're not trying to convince anyone of them, and but we're really listening carefully to how each person is seeing, they're seeing and thinking. And this is something that the culture never really invites us to do, is to learn about how do we think. Well, to me, it was always like, this reminded me of like what I told you before about my first Krishnamurti book was, and he's in this top of the second page or something says, you're all waiting for somebody to give you the answers. You're all secondhand people. And we've collected so much of everybody's ideas, that we hadn't really looked at them and said, are these really making sense, or something like, don't talk to this person, or don't talk to these people, don't do. I mean, we haven't looked at our own consciousness, so can we just, when all of these things come up in the dialogue, can we look at them and see, like, do we really know these things, or like, do we really know what we're saying, like, and you really get to know ourselves. But if you can see when we don't suspend a reaction, that people just they argue or something. But if you could just observe what's going on, why are we arguing, what is it that is going on, and I would just say here that last part, it may turn out that opinions are not really very important. These ideas are, like, our relationship together may be much more important than any of these ideas. And
yeah, I think there's tremendous opportunity in observing what you're just speaking to, Howard, because I think there's this sense of entering into a relationship, particularly a new relationship, and we don't think of it as being assumptions, because there's so much going on in terms of ideas and thoughts and possibilities, plus our whole body emotional response and reactivity to this other person, especially if it's a love interest, but it doesn't even have to be. It could just be a new friend or a new acquaintance. And we don't realize that all of that activity is probably assumptive, if I can use that word. That it's not based on fact, it's based on my own reactions to what's actually going on. And I never look at what's actually going on. I'm taken away by all of these assumptions. And needless to say, so many relationships do not last. They don't stand the test of life, if you will, not even time, but of life, because those assumptions eventually are like soap bubbles. They last for a little while, and then they're gone. And then you have to either make up new assumptions or look at the fact. And I think at that point, at least my sense of it is, and even in my own life, when you couldn't come up with a better assumption to stay together, you just separated.
Mm.
You just went your own way.
I guess there's one other thing I wanted to address in that quote or something. That opening line of is not to analyze things. You know, like so why not or something. You know, so analyzing is done according to our own beliefs and opinions. If I hear you say something and I analyze what you're saying according to my opinions, I'm not really seeing I want to see what you're seeing. I want to, I hear what's going on with you. I already know sort of what I think, so if I'm just, because analyzing is usually evaluating. It's, well, okay, well, you're right there. No, well, you're wrong there. Well, that's okay, but no, that's not okay. So I'm not actually hearing you. I want to hear you clearly. So when I communicate with you, I've actually understood what you're saying.
Instead of what my brain is telling me.
Yeah. So there's a problem in listening to each other of analyzing is not listening. So I want to see exactly what you're communicating to me, and if I'm analyzing, I'm just getting in the way of that or something. That's maybe a little bit takes some looking at or something at, but I just, it's something to look at to see, find out if we're really listening to each other. But, so this last one here, dialogue is really aimed at going into the whole thought process and changing the way the thought process occurs collectively together as a society. Now, to me, this is also, well, he's saying it right there. This is what Bohm is saying. This is the intent of dialogue for Bohm, and the only thing I would say here is, why would we, need to change the thought process? Well, isn't it because all of this behavior that's going on, where people hurting and everything, it's coming from the way we think, right? So if the way we think doesn't change, we'll just keep, creating conflict and war and division. So our culture doesn't tell us to look at thought, see what's thought doing, what's the role thought's playing. So here we're going to look at what's going on in thought, because that's where all the actions are coming out of. I need to do it this way. That's what we think. So we need to understand, this thought that's directing the behavior, and if that doesn't change, then nothing changes outwardly. So that's my perspective on that.
Thank you for that, Howard. Thank you for this presentation. Really, I think it's succinct. Oh, bye, Dolly.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
I don't think this is a great introduction to dialogue. The way this kind of just.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too. I mean, I think you could do pages of this, and it's just too overwhelming or something. And I think if you could get a simple, thing that points out some of the key issues, and then let people discover the other stuff as they go along, and especially if they see some kind of necessity again, that that how else are we going to address what's going on in our lives without looking at it together.